I moved to this secluded cabin deep in the forests of upstate New York 5 years ago, seeking peace and quiet away from the chaos of city life. The place was perfect, a cozy wooden cabin surrounded by towering trees, with a crystal-clear lake nestled just behind the property. My nearest neighbor lived miles away, and the only sounds I ever heard were the rustling of leaves in the wind and the occasional bird call. It was peaceful, exactly how I liked it. But that peace didn't last forever. It started about 2 weeks ago. At first, it was nothing unusual, just the typical sounds of the woods at night. Twigs snapping, leaves crunching. I brushed it off, thinking it was probably deer or raccoons wandering around. But then, one evening, while I was sitting on the deck watching the sunset, I heard something new. A faint scratching sound coming from near the spare bedroom window. I froze, straining to hear it more clearly, but after a few seconds, it stopped. I convinced myself it was just a branch brushing against the house. That night, as I lay in bed, drifting off to sleep, I heard it again. This time, louder, closer. The scratching noise had returned, and it sounded deliberate, almost as if someone or something was trying to be quiet but couldn't help making noise. My pulse quickened as I listened, my mind racing. Was it an animal, or was it something else? I gathered my courage and got out of bed, grabbing a flashlight. I tiptoed down the hallway toward the spare bedroom. The house was dark and silent, except for the sound of my footsteps on the creaky wooden floor. When I reached the window, I pulled the curtain back just a little and peered outside. Nothing. Just darkness and the familiar outline of trees swaying gently in the breeze. I told myself I was imagining things. After all, I'd lived here for years without any problems. But even as I went back to bed, a nagging feeling of unease lingered in the back of my mind. The next night, things escalated. I was lying in bed, just starting to fall asleep, when I heard a tapping sound. Soft, rhythmic, and unmistakable. It was coming from the same window. My heart skipped a beat. I sat up, holding my breath, listening intently. The tapping continued for a few seconds, then stopped abruptly. This time, I didn't go to the window. I stayed in bed, paralyzed with fear, until exhaustion eventually dragged me into a restless sleep. Over the next few nights, the sounds grew more frequent and more unnerving. The tapping was sometimes accompanied by scratching, and once I even thought I heard a faint whisper, as if someone was breathing just outside the window. My nerves were shot. I was on edge all the time, jumping at every little noise. One night, I decided enough was enough. I couldn't keep ignoring it. I grabbed a crowbar from the shed outside and went back into the house, determined to confront whatever or whoever was causing the noises. I went straight to the spare bedroom and opened the door. The room was dark and felt oddly cold, as though no one had been inside for a long time. I shone the flashlight around, checking every corner under the bed and behind the dresser. Nothing. Just an empty, dusty room. I felt a little silly for overreacting, but as I turned to leave, I noticed something strange. The closet door was slightly ajar. I didn't remember leaving it like that. My stomach tightened as I slowly walked over to the closet. I gripped the crowbar tightly, my hands trembling. With a deep breath, I flung the door open. Nothing. Just a dark, empty closet. Except for one thing. At the very back, near the floor, I saw a small piece of fabric caught on a jagged edge of wood. It looked like part of a torn shirt. My heart raced as I reached out and touched it. The fabric was dirty and damp, as though it had been there for some time. Suddenly, I felt like I was being watched. A chill ran down my spine, and I backed out of the room, slamming the closet door shut behind me. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed on the couch, clutching the crowbar, with every light in the house turned on. The hours dragged by in tense silence, and for the first time I felt truly afraid in my own home. The next evening I decided I couldn't let fear control me. I went to bed as usual, determined to get a good night's sleep. Just as I was about to drift off, I heard it again, the same soft tapping on the window. This time I didn't hesitate. I jumped out of bed, grabbed my flashlight, and ran to the spare bedroom. I yanked the curtain back, expecting to see nothing. But I was wrong. Standing just outside the window, barely visible in the moonlight, was a figure. A shadowy, human figure. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, watching me. I stumbled back, my mind racing. Who was that? What did they want? I didn't wait to find out. I ran to the living room, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911 with shaking hands. There's someone outside my house,